welcome to For the Love of Nature, a podcast where we tell you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura Fawks Lapole.
And I'm Katy Holloway, and today we're talking to Catherine Tidwell, who is a Great Ape Keeper at the Little Rock Zoo, and she's going to help us celebrate Orang Awareness Day. Say hello, Catherine.
Hi.
It's always like the most awkward intro. Like, say hi, hello.
Well, it's because almost like when you're like a ventriloquist and you're like, say hello to the people, Catherine.
Hello. Yeah.
Hi, I'm here.
So, Laura and I, as you guys know, we've talked about it before, we used to work at the Little Rock Zoo, and we worked with Catherine there for a few years. And so, since we worked with Catherine, we talked about doing an Orang Awareness Day episode. We decided to go ahead and have Catherine on, and she was kind enough to agree to our insanity and be on the podcast with us to talk about orang. So, Laura's going to go ahead. We're going to kick it off with a little bit of a bio about Catherine, and then we're just going to go through a bunch of questions, and hopefully we ask all the questions of things that you guys want to know. But if not, go ahead and shoot us some questions via our social media, and then we can send those to Catherine as well.
Yep. And hopefully all of this today will teach you about how incredible orangutans are, and you'll fall in love with them as I think we all have. All right, so just a little bit about Catherine to introduce her. Catherine has been involved in the zoo world for a little over 20 years now. She started as a teen volunteer working in Great Apes, fell in love, and decided that's what she wanted to do with her career. She attended college at Miami University in Ohio and majored in zoology, anthropology, and environmental science. So as I was reading this, I was like, wow, bit of an overachiever. No. But no, all of these gave her valuable insight and different perspectives in the field. And anyone who is in the zoo field, a lot of people approach it differently. Some of us did biology, some did psychology for animal training, so many different ways to approach it. So she went from being an intern to a part-time employee to a full-time employee. She has worked at both the Knoxville Zoo and the Little Rock Zoo, where she's currently employed. So Catherine is a Great Apes expert, in our opinion, and we couldn't think of anyone better to have on.
Absolutely.
So, to kick things off, Catherine, our first question for you is, what made you fall in love with Great Apes?
I was not really sure when I started volunteering, what area I was interested in. But as soon as I started working with the apes, their intelligence just blew me away. They always keep me on my toes. There's always something new with them. They're always thinking, moving. It's always trying to get more enrichment, more training, more for them. And I just fell in love with all their different personalities.
That makes sense. I feel like it's a lot of the reasons why Katy and I joined education. It's honestly probably very similar.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. I was like, wait a minute.
Yeah. I would think
the challenges, yeah. The challenges of it, and also like the reason why it's so fulfilling. The intelligence, trying to figure out how to make things fun for them. No different.
And watching them learn. And watching them learn
absolutely.
Through different training, different things. It's, similar, I would think.
Totally. All right, cool. Well, in general, what Great Apes have you worked with in the past?
I've worked with quite a few chimpanzees, gorillas, and orangutans. So
no one wants to work with bonobos anyway.
I haven't had a chance to work with bonobos. I would be fascinated to work with them, but yeah, so 3 of the 4 Great Ape species, which is pretty impressive. But
yeah,
bonobos still creep me out. They are like, I am gay, and I love the Great Apes. Bonobos creep me out like mother.
I think it's just because they don't have as much hair.
Not as much hair. They're just a little too human that it's creepy to me. like it's just weird.
Okay, so of the Great Apes that you've worked with, how many orangutans in particular?
7 individuals.
Wow.
That I have worked with, which is actually a lot when I started going back and counting. Because chimps and gorillas live in big social groups, orangs are a little more solitary in the wild. In human care, they can be in smaller groups, but it's always been a smaller group. So I was surprised when I started going back through the years and how many I've actually gotten to work with.
I was gonna say, because they're not short-lived either, right?
That's what I was gonna say. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they can live into their 50s, so quite a while. I'm surprised that it's been 7, but it's neat to have those different personalities, different individuals that I've already gotten to. They've all been so different.
It is weird because I think whenever a lot of people think of zookeeping and they're not thinking about, potentially you could work with 2 individuals of orangs for your entire career.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Because they live longer than an individual's typical work life. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So, yeah, 7 is quite a bit considering, like Laura said, like how long they live, but then just how long you typically work. So, yeah, that is a lot.
And have they been both male and female?
Yeah, male and female. 3 males. Yeah, 4 females. But it's interesting. I was looking. I've worked with 22 different chimps and 13 different gorillas.
God bless you.
It's interesting how much different and lower the orang number is, I guess. Just because there is such different social groups there.
Right. We're used to like larger troops of chimpanzees, whereas orangutans are not giant groups.
Yeah. But yeah, orangs, it was 3 males, 4 females. I was trying to think of, I think 3 is our biggest group I've ever worked with at once. We've now have a baby. I've worked with a geriatric. So it's been a big range of ages and individuals.
Because 3 is what you guys have now, right?
Yeah.
Mom, dad, baby. Okay.
Yes. And then once before, we had 2 males, Rock and Jawara. Jawara was actually a hormonally suppressed male. And then we had Jody at the same time. So we actually had 3 back then also at another time. So.
Fascinating. What was I about to ask? Not that I would ever choose, like if somebody was like, choose your favorite child. No. But has any of them ever stood out to you as like favorites to work with?
They all have such different personalities. It's so hard to pick really one even individual. There's definitely been some that have really touched my heart more than others. Rock is our old male. I worked with him for years, and he's one that made me fall in love with orangutans. So he's definitely one that definitely means a lot to me. And then even our new female Barani, I've gone through such a journey with her. I went out to LA and helped pick her up. So when we actually transfer and bring in new orangutans, a lot of times we'll send a keeper out to their zoo to help get to know them there. And then a keeper comes back with us to help settle them in. And since I was the keeper that luckily got chosen to go out to LA, meet her, bring her back, it made kind of a bond in this whole journey. And then I got to be her primary trainer, trained her through her pregnancy, maternity behaviors, ultrasound, bringing the baby up.
Wow.
It was such a journey with her.
Yeah, for sure. And you talked a little bit about you going out to LA. So, Laura and I know about SSPs, which is a species survival plan. Catherine, could you, for those who don't understand that, could you walk them through a little bit about what that is? Because it's not like zoos just say, "Hey, I want to go get this orang." It's a lot more complicated than that. So, could you explain a little bit about that process?
Yeah. So the SSP, or Species Survival Plan, is basically a group that helps manage the orangutans. There's actually a division for almost majority of the animals we have in the zoo, but they help with when to breed them, when to transfer them, to make sure we have good, healthy, happy families, populations. We make sure we have good genetics across them. So they look at so many different aspects. And especially with the apes, it's a little more complicated because it's not just for breeding and genetics. It's, you got to have good, healthy social groups too. And who gets along with who. And
no, that's an interesting aspect of it.
So there's a lot, I feel like some different aspects in there trying to make sure you have a good group. So they actually were the ones who recommended to bring Barani to Little Rock, and then recommended for her to breed after she got there. She came when she was a little younger. We waited year to kind of settle her in and everything before we got the breeding recommendation. But that kind of, they helped with organizing all of that.
And what, you were just talking about this journey that you've been with her through with the pregnancy and maternity and everything. What exactly did you need to coach her and train her on as a first time mom rather than like what's just instinctual?
I think Laura's looking for tips as a first time mother.
So she had a great background. She actually was in her natal group when her mom had her little sister, so she got to watch all that and experience all that.
That's awesome.
Gave her the background that we were hoping she'd be a good mom. But during the pregnancy, after the pregnancy test, we didn't really know. So we wanted to train her for holding the baby up to the bars in case we needed to bottle feed or check the baby or anything with that. Doing visual exams on her, ultrasound training on her, just different behaviors like that. There was a whole, like we discussed, do we need to train her to let us see the baby and actually leave the baby and shift away so we could check in? We ended up deciding not against that just because we wanted to make sure they created enough of a bond.
Makes sense.
But we discussed, pros and cons of that. What is the likelihood that we're going to need to get our hands on the baby? So there was a lot of discussion, a lot of different things. But she actually did it was only a few hours after birth. She brought the baby right up and showed the baby to me, which was
that's so adorable.
I mean, it was amazing because she brought the baby right inside, came up to the bar, showed her to me. It was a pretty amazing experience.
I bet. And then especially because were you going through things at the exact same time?
No.
Or just soon after?
Shortly, year later, but yes.
To clarify, Catherine has a human child. So, because Laura didn't stage that. Catherine has
You had to go through something similar. No, sorry. We also sent Catherine to another state and put her through training.
We taught her to hold up a baby.
Well, and it was the experience, since you then went through the similar journey that she did it feel very similar? Do you feel like you went through very similar things?
It was interesting, I feel like, during the pregnancy that I was like, oh, I bet this is why Barani felt this way. And I can't wait till the next pregnancy in the building just because it's going to give me a whole different perspective after me going through the pregnancy.
I bet.
But, she did, during the pregnancy, she had weird food, I felt like weird food cravings, but, she loved
That's amazing.
She would not eat an apple. She refused,
That's
most
amazing.
pregnant love their fruit. She didn't want to eat an apple at all. She said no.
That's just so funny.
That is hilarious.
So she definitely had those food cravings. That's
such fascinating insight. And it's so great that she did form that bond with you and then felt comfortable enough to be like, look, and share.
Look at this. Yeah.
I did it. That's how I feel like I'm gonna feel.
Justin, look, I did it.
Yeah.
It'll be a Lion King moment for sure.
Yeah.
Everybody, look. So now that baby's born, I'm sure all of our listeners, we could talk about babies, I'm sure, for the rest of the time, but anything stand out now that baby's born and is starting to grow? Is it different to take care of a baby orangutan than it is adults?
So Kasi is the first baby I've ever worked with. And it's interesting because orangutans have such long, slow childhoods. They actually will nurse for about 5 years, depending on mom even longer than that, because they have to learn what is mom eating, how is she getting the food, what foods are even edible. So there is a very long transition of getting solid food and nursing. In the wild, it's actually about 8 years for what's called interbirth interval, or time in between kids, because they need all that time with mom. So there's a very
Isn't it one of the longest childhoods of all animals, I think, right?
It has to be one of the longest.
Yeah, it has to be. It is so long.
But with that longevity, it's interesting to see. I feel like she's growing every day and getting more adventurous and seeing all those milestones. So it's this weird, like, she's growing so fast, but growing so slow. She's still just a little baby.
Yeah.
But she's getting,
I guess compared to the other babies.
yeah. And she's getting more and more adventurous. It's comical to watch her kind of test those boundaries. Her newest favorite thing is to go up to the pool that we have and throw things in and watch them splash. She likes to go up and get rocks and branches and throw them in the water and just stare at them. And Mom pulls her away from the water, which, is cute. She's starting to get more independent in what she wants. So at dinner the other night, it was actually funny. We have some short tree stumps out in the yard, and Bronny wanted the baby to come inside, and she just started running around the tree, almost kind of like a cartoon. She went one way, Bronny followed, Bronny changed directions, she changed directions. Bronny finally went up and over the tree stump and grabbed her, but they circled for quite some time before she, got her inside. So,
Just getting ornery.
Getting more adventurous.
Yeah, I'll say.
So in the wild, orangutans would be solitary with their babies, and males really wouldn't be involved, correct?
Correct.
So how is it in captivity? Is there any change? Does she ever interact with dad, or?
She actually does. She is typically, in most situations, the male should be the dominant one in the orang world. He's about twice the size. He really should be the dominant one. In our little group, Bronny rules the roost. She'll actually pull on his dreadlocks.
Yeah.
She pulls on his dreadlocks and says, "Come on, honey, we're coming inside. I'm moving you here and there." She steals his food.
That's so cute.
She will wrestle and hold him down. I've seen her sit on his hand and pry his fingers open for food. But she's
such an easygoing guy. That's so nice.
She has been very much in control with the baby, so she'll set the baby on him. He doesn't really get the choice of when. He'll kind of come and sit close to the baby, but it's really Bronny walking up and saying, "Here, play with the baby now." So she still has a lot of control over that. And all of it, it's pretty typical, I feel like, for the mom to have control over when the male or other individuals get to see the baby, play with the baby and all that.
Cool. Very cool. Okay. So a little bit of switching gears. For those listeners who just aren't that familiar with orangutans, can you give us a little bit of natural history or background on orangutans? What kind of makes them special and unique and different than other great apes?
So they are a large primate from Borneo and Sumatra. They spend a majority of their time up in the tops of trees. They are very long-limbed, very long arms. They actually have very big, long fingers and toes. Their feet actually are very similar to hands. Their big toes set back like a thumb. These guys are great for climbing, great for that life in the trees. They're very intelligent. They're great tool users, very smart. They are pretty solitary. Usually a male will kind of encompass a few different female territories that he'll kind of go check on, but they don't really hang out together.
Or, let's see. I think a lot of people would want to know, what do they, what do they eat? I feel like a lot of people think that, that primates
Bananas.
eat very similar stuff that we do, or just bananas.
Just bananas.
They eat all different fruits and veggies. They are considered frugivores. They do eat majority fruit, but they will eat some other leaves, other plants. They will eat some insects, but it's more opportunistic of what's on the plant material they're eating.
Yeah,
Okay,
and
cool.
then males, and too, just to give a visual, so males and females do look drastically different.
Yes.
Could you kind of go over that a little bit?
So they actually have what's called sexual dimorphism, which is where the males and the females do look different. The males get really big size. They're about double the size of the females. They get looks like a big double chin. It's actually an air sac. They have a big air sac that they can fill with air and make a really long territorial call with that. And then males get what are called phalanges or cheek pads, which are these funny flaps around their face. They're kind of like their cheeks angle forward. And they help with, one, making them look big, but they also help project that long call. Kind of like putting your hands around your mouth helps push and funnel that sound forward. Because they are very solitary, they do have that easy visual difference in size across the forest they can see, and vocalizations that really carry through the trees.
Yeah, that makes sense. If you're going to live alone, you got to be loud.
I mean,
Otherwise, how are you going to find anybody?
Yeah, right.
And that long call, like the long call they can make with that air sac, it's a very deep, guttural vocalization that really carries pretty far.
Yeah.
Cool. Like an elephant. Alrighty. Well, you were mentioning orangutans and are very intelligent animals. Do you have any firsthand experience with some of those tales of how smart, or have you heard any awesome stories?
They are so smart, and a lot of it is just their tool use. These guys, anything I put outside their bedrooms, outside the bars, they are so good at getting sticks, bringing things in, fishing things in. Almost anything you have to be aware, and it's amazing what they can find to figure out how to do things. And I've even watched an orang basically get a blade of grass, go over, loop the grass to get a branch, to then go get a thicker branch, to then use that as a tool. And watching those different steps of how to get into that, let me get this tool so I can go get another tool to be more efficient at something else.
Yes.
It's just mind-blowing to watch
planning.
those steps.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. That's the impressive part, is that it's not just, hey, I need a big branch, let me get this blade of grass. It's, I need the blade of grass to get the smaller stick, which helps me to then get a bigger stick. And so it's the series of steps for me that's the crazy part.
Yeah. And I've watched Brawny so many times go through those different steps to then get a tool just to do something else. And it's mind-blowing to watch. But yeah, and even little things like our old male Rock, he actually really enjoyed the water running. And so we actually have little buttons called Lixits in the bedrooms that they can press down and get fresh water. He would actually go get stuff and basically jam them so they run all night long. And his mom was actually really good, and I heard stories that she would even clog the drain and let it fill up. So then you had more running water sounds. And then we'd also sit in the window and watch you because you unplugged it.
Think of how many humans need a noise to fall asleep at night, and they love that running water noise.
Yeah, it's the white noise. It's just a white noise.
So many little things that they come up with their own little projects, and it's fascinating. But also keeps you on your toes. Like every bolt, every nut that we put in there, instantly anything I hang, first thing Brawny's out there checking each and every one to see what is loose, what can she take down. It's
like, wow, Catherine did a quality job today. Like, just checking everything, making
She's
sure.
the deconstructor.
Yeah.
And I mean, anything that I'm like, oh, I changed this light bulb, and she'd be up there, can I get into it? What can I poke out? Yeah.
And I remember too that the male really liked art, right? Like he really liked to draw.
Yeah, so different individuals like some like art more than others. We do let them paint quite often. One of our past orangutans, Chiquita, loved playing with chalk and crayons quite a bit. Our newest individual, Barani, or the newer female, she likes to paint on the walls. So if you hand her a paintbrush and hold up the canvas, usually it's painted all over the walls, and then we'll do a streak on the canvas. She likes to, find her own place to paint.
She's a free spirit. Yeah.
So she will. Our newer male, Bandar, he likes to play with the chalk in the water. Has been his big thing this summer. And there's times that I swear I picked up all the chalk. He had it hidden away on a bed somewhere, and he'll get it down when I start playing with or bringing out the hose to play with, and he'll just start rubbing it in the water and making colored water. But there's times I don't even realize where's he been stashing it. But
I'll use this for later.
Yeah.
And I mean, Brawny is known for that. she's not the best at shifting inside, but she for quite a while used to always go out, put everything that she wanted to keep up on a very high platform out in the yard, and then shift inside so you couldn't pick it up or clean it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a
Got
big
you
ladder or
now.
something. But she made things very difficult for, and it, if it was something like a big tub, it's like, oh, she already put it up there, I'll just leave it. I don't want to get the big ladder out. So she got her way. She won. She got the blanket she wanted. She got the tub she wanted. Unless we really needed
stash.
it. But she made her own stashes around.
That's cool. So you were talking too about like preferences and stuff for art. Have you noticed any other like strong preferences for anything between individuals?
They all have their own personality. Our male bandar is such a chill, relaxed, easygoing guy. Barani is always coming up with projects. She very much tells you when she is mad at you or doesn't like what you're doing. She wants things her way all the time. But they all kind of have different personalities, different foods they like, different toys they like, different spots in the yard where they like to nest. They all kind of have their own preferences.
Have any ever really surprised you? Like you were like, wow, I did not think that this would hit off as well as it did, or that they would hate it this much?
Actually, we do all sorts of different things for enrichment. But in auditory enrichment, Barani hates the sound of frogs. I don't know why. More than once, I have played frog sounds, and she is doing kiss tweets and vocalizing and so mad for the rest of the day. She just keeps looking at me. I don't know why. It's the weirdest thing.
That's so unfortunate because she hears them. Like, it's not like there aren't frog calls at the zoo. I know. I've been there at night listening to them.
Yeah.
But she is the funniest thing because we'll play nature sounds. Other nature sounds doesn't care about. For some reason, frogs, I've at least 4
Those
times.
darn frogs.
Yeah.
Thinking that it's something like random, like, oh, it's just a coincidence. She's tired of the sound. Oh, I've tried it multiple times. She very much tells me.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I wonder, has she ever met a frog in like her exhibit? I wonder. No, you know what I mean? Like, I wonder if she.
I don't like you. And just from then on out,
that I'll find in the yard. I don't understand it, but majority of the rings all like blankets a lot, like fabric, which actually is based off of wild behavior. In the wild, they'll use big leaves, vegetations to cover themselves from the sun, heat, rain, and here in most zoos, they'll use fabric or other big pieces like a cardboard to cover themselves the same way. So that is one thing that majority of the orangutans also like.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I do remember, like, Rock, he would get always under a blanket. Like,
running around with like a cape.
Yeah, he always was hiding under a blanket. Rock has a special place in my heart, too. He was definitely a unique individual, for sure.
Yes. And he always touched my heart a lot, too, because he always liked to trade, just thinking on how smart they are and stuff. So he all the time would bring things into me. Here's a rock that I dug up. Here's a button off this piece of fabric. Here's whatever. And give me items. But he knew when he had things that he shouldn't. And we taught him how to trade. So he would actually point at the kitchen and say, I need something better for this. And that was one of the...
Which is amazing. Which is like amazing that...
How much you want this, Catherine?
Yeah.
Well, and I know more than once, like I remember specifically him getting a set of car keys, and he knew if he broke it, he
knows what he
get
has.
anything for it. But car keys, he would take each key off, and he wanted an item for each one.
Oh my gosh.
What a turd. That is like, okay, again though, that is like this steps thing, like the intelligence of a blade of grass to a small stick to a bigger stick. That is the same thing. Like, I have this thing. I can make it into smaller pieces without destroying it to get more things. Like, that's just an intelligence that's just like a step beyond what I think most people think of when they think of an animal.
Yeah. I worked at a zoo once where I heard a story of an orangutan that kept catching ducks because they had a pond or a moat. It would take ducks, and its keepers would trade for the ducks because they didn't want them out on the exhibit. Because it would they wouldn't be alive. And so one day they got a new curator who was like, we can't keep reinforcing this behavior. This ends today. So instead of trading for a whole banana, he broke it in half, and the orangutan proceeded to break the duck in half and only trade half the duck. So, needless to say, that battle wasn't won. They had to fill in the moat.
Yeah.
That is horrible.
But I mean, that's the same concept as the keys. They knew that they were not gonna.
And we have a banana. I give you half a duck. That's so horrible. What a mess. Like, half a banana is not a big deal, but like, half a duck, that's such a mess to clean up. Also, can you imagine that curator's face? Like, of just terror? Like, he's ripped his back.
Well,
Oh, that's horrible. Oh.
I was gonna say, similar to that, but less gruesome. Rock specifically got one of the old like Nokia phones, and had brought it in, and it, a phone, we want that back. And he was putting it in the kitchen. He knew, and my coworker got a frozen small Snickers, and he very carefully unscrewed the antenna, took off the front faceplate, and when she wouldn't give it to him because she was like, no, this is a Snickers, you need to like give me the whole phone, he just looked at her, broke it in half, handed her the broken phone, and walked away with it. I was like, okay.
Yeah.
All or nothing, lady. That's hilarious.
So with Rock, what would you say was like his highest value? Like, what was in his mind? What, like, let's say if he had something really good, what was in his mind the highest value? Was it just day to day, whatever he was feeling like, or was like the Snickers or was something that abnormal?
Something like a Snickers was very abnormal, so that was high value. We don't give very much processed food, so when they get something like that, it's top tier. But other than that, it's the seasonal things. Strawberries are really big because we don't get them usually all year round. They really like watermelon at the beginning of the season. By the end of the summer, watermelon's not as exciting. So the seasonal stuff are kind of the new exciting things. Other than that, grapes. Grapes are a big item.
Grapes are delicious.
Yeah, I can't blame them. Yeah.
Well, speaking about novel things, and you've mentioned before enrichment, for our listeners, can you just kind of explain how you make sure that the great apes have full enriched lives in captivity?
Yeah, so we do a lot of enrichment, things that get them moving, thinking, things that bring out natural behavior, things that really can help mentally stimulate these guys because they are so smart. So we actually have a calendar of all sorts of different puzzle feeders, things that they have to work out how to get the food out, or they might have to use a tool to get the item, and then things that elicit play or get them to climb around more or forage more. So we actually have all sorts of different enrichment items that we do to help kind of bring out all those different behaviors.
Are there different, like at one point you mentioned that there was auditory enrichment. Are there different categories that you guys have?
Yeah, so we do have different categories. We've actually been kind of revamping our enrichment calendar. Before we were kind of going with the different categories of puzzle feeders, auditory, different sensory things. And we're actually going now more toward goal-based. What are we trying to get out of this?
Oh, cool.
Are we trying to get them to forage? Are we trying to get them to play? Are we trying to bring out nesting behavior?
Nice.
They make nests every night. And are we trying to elicit? What are we trying to elicit out of these different things?
That makes sense.
So we've kind of changed over some of our categories, but it's, I think, for the better, and it's interesting switching those over of what are we really trying to bring out with this.
Well, right, yeah. If the goal of enrichment is to promote natural behaviors, then you're right. The goal should be what's in mind, not just.
Yeah, that does make sense. And for those of you who don't know too, like Catherine, they do a phenomenal job of enrichment at Little Rock Zoo, but this is something that's a requirement across all zoos that are AZA accredited, AZA, the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So this is something that for not just great apes, but for pretty much all animals, there's enrichment plans that are required to make sure that you're promoting natural behavior. So it's not just back like in the old days where it's an animal, in an exhibit. It's intentionally enriching their lives. I don't know how else to put it, but enlisting those natural behaviors. So.
Right, and it's the same that all of our listeners would do if they have pets. Even if it's just like a ball for a dog, you're still promoting chase, which is a natural behavior. And at the Nature Center, I work with mostly reptiles, but I make sure that our reptiles get enrichment once a week. Whatever that be, and whether or not they even care, it depends. But it's there, by golly.
I was going to say, with the enrichment, too, we also do a lot of training to help mentally stimulate
Oh, yes.
them. And that, a lot of it's to help with our husbandry. So these guys are smart. They're willing to work with us. It's all done through positive reinforcement. So I have to have that really good item. But most of our individuals know how to give me different body parts, hands, feet, stomach, back. They'll open their mouths. We can check out their teeth. If we have a big event coming up like a pregnancy, we do extra ultrasound training. We do injection training. Just different things like that is mentally stimulating and then also can help their husbandry out.
Yeah, because I think when people hear training, they're like, oh, you're teaching them tricks? No, it's like husbandry things and things like that.
Like give me, like Catherine mentioned, injections. So it's give me your shoulder, give me your hip. And so that it like up to the side so that the vets can reach them. So, I mean, it is useful and it makes everybody's lives a lot less stressful.
For sure.
For training those behaviors, yeah.
So obviously, orangutans seem pretty amazing, and I know that Katy and I, of course, know the answer to this. But for any listeners out there who are thinking, wow, orangutans sound awesome, I wish that I could have an orangutan. Catherine, would they make good pets?
Definitely not. Orangutan should not be pets. They have such a long, slow childhood that when they are in the pet trade, they're actually taken away from mom as babies. They don't learn how to be orangutans. For pets and for the entertainment industry, they need that time with mom. And people think if they just love them and treat them like a child, they won't be an orangutan, but they still grow up to be an orangutan. They're still big and strong. They still have big old canines. And most of the pet and entertainment, it's about 7 years before they get too big and strong and they get dumped. And that's a long time when they can live into their 50s of being a really screwed up individual that doesn't know how to be an orangutan. So it's not a good situation.
So, obviously, not as pets, but I think a lot of people have heard that orangutans are in trouble. Why are orangutans endangered?
So they are critically endangered. One of the biggest problems is that they are losing their forest. So these guys spend majority of the time in the treetops, up in the tops of trees, and they're losing a lot of those trees. And a lot of that is actually because they're losing their habitat. And that's a lot of it's for palm oil. Palm oil is a very fast-growing vegetable oil that has destroyed so much of their trees, their land. It's estimated that in the last, 20 years, that 80% of their habitat has been destroyed, and mainly from palm oil. So they're losing drastic numbers from this vegetable oil because it's cheap and it's fast growing. But it's made it where these guys' numbers are dwindling so low.
So with that in mind, what can our listeners do to help orangutans?
So if you start checking labels, you'll realize that palm oil is in so many different products, from peanut butter to candy bars to cosmetics to all sorts of different things. And you can kind of start looking at those labels and try to choose things that don't have palm oil in them. Or you can even look and try to find things that are more sustainable palm oil. Cheyenne Mountain actually made a really awesome app that's free that you can download. You can scan barcodes and check, and it'll tell you if it has palm oil in the product, and if it does have palm oil, if it's sustainable or not. So that's a really easy way to help these guys help try to save the last of the forest that they have so that they're not losing more of it for that palm oil.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm pretty sure it's the Cheyenne Mountain app too, that whenever you scan it, if the sound is on, aren't they the ones that have the chainsaw sound or the happy sound? I'm pretty sure that's the app.
Dang!
Yeah. There's one of them do that.
It is that one. I don't know if they've changed that, though. For some reason, I feel like it doesn't have that sound anymore.
Guilt trip.
Yeah, that was I mean, talk about change behavior. Every time it's like you do something that has palm
Very
oil and
obvious.
it's like a chainsaw sound with like a frowning face. I was like, how? Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that app on my phone and I like to use it, but it is really depressing when you see how much there is. But I do
how
remember
much it's in everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Thankfully, though, I think a lot of companies, and for sure, even while I was at the Little Rock Zoo, every time I did Orangutan Awareness Day, every year there were more companies jumping on the sustainable palm oil train,
And the more
which
we
is
spread
awesome.
Yeah, and the more we spread awareness about it, the more companies are going to try to push toward the sustainable palm oil and hopefully use less of it. And hopefully we can help save these guys if we can keep pushing that and spreading that awareness. Something else I do want to point out, though, on with helping these guys, I was talking about how the pet trade is a problem with these guys in entertainment. If you be aware of what you share, so sharing some of the images on social media of these guys.
That's a good point.
In the pet trade, in dressed up in clothes, in just people's homes and performing unnatural behaviors, it helps kind of make people think that the pet trade's okay. It helps encourage it. And so if you're aware of kind of what you share, it can kind of it can help these guys.
Oh, I think that's such a good thing that you bring up.
It is.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't think would be any harm at all. It's, oh my gosh, look how freaking cute this is.
And you see
but
that
right,
cute,
just being aware of,
what you're sharing and what is the situation behind that. And is that individual that's dressed up and feeding the tiger a bottle, it's adorable, but it's not good welfare. It's not in a good situation. The more you share it, the more it's going to happen. So just kind of being aware of what you share on social media.
Excellent addition. And then my last question, and then we can hand it over if Katie has anything extra. Mine would be for all of our listeners who are like, wow, Catherine's amazing. I also want to work with great apes. Is there any career advice that you would give someone who wants to become a zookeeper?
I would say to volunteer, get your foot in the door. That way you can kind of learn if it's the career path you really want to follow. It's a lot of hard work, physically and emotionally, but it's been amazing. The experiences, the friendships, the working with the apes I wouldn't trade it for the world. But it is something that dip your foot in, learn more about. That's why I always encourage volunteering, getting involved with your local zoo. Because, I mean, it's amazing. I feel like even after all the different years that I've been over the zoo or at the zoo, I still find myself in awe by the apes almost on a daily basis from something they do.
I'm sure it sounds amazing. And obviously, yeah, like this is your passion. And no, that's good advice. Because I think a lot of people, I've in the past asked people, well, how should I get involved with animal stuff? And they're like, volunteer at your local animal shelter. But I like how you point out, volunteer at the zoo so that you can get an idea for what you actually like to do. Because that's what it is. It's dipping your foot into, yes. Because I think that there's a lot of misconceptions as to what animal care involves. So it'd be great. And this is coming from Catherine, who started out as a volunteer. So she's done the path. She's not telling you guys anything that she hasn't already done herself.
Yes.
Katie, is there any other questions that you have? Any wild card questions?
Oh, man. I think we talked about everything. I mean, just because we have worked with Catherine before. I mean, again, it's just, you did a fantastic job of showing the complexity of being a keeper, but at the same time, the overwhelming rewarding of it. And two, I mean, if you guys ever go to Little Rock Zoo, I would say, like, you guys still do the keeper chats, right?
Yes, we do a 1:30 keeper chat up on top. So that's always a great time to come find us, chat with us, learn a little bit about them. We do other chats sporadically and for like different events and stuff, but the 1:30 keeper chat has been kind of an ongoing easy time to find us up top.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would say, and that's what I was going to say, like, that to me, I mean, just knowing Catherine, and like we said, like, Laura and I, we were in education, and I can't tell you the number of times we've gone up there, and, you know, Catherine's taking the time to talk with guests, and just the impact that you're having, the positive impact that you're having for conservation, because, I mean, that's really the ultimate goal of zoos, is just to spread the awareness about, you know, the animals, of why do we need them in zoos? And we have so many people that are against zoos, but zoos do such amazing things. And you're definitely such a strong advocate for zoos and what AZA and everybody's working for. So I mean, no questions really, other than like, yeah, if you guys are visiting Little Rock Zoo, go talk to Catherine. I mean,
come find me.
This has been what, almost 50 minutes here of information, but man, she knows so much more even than what we've been able to touch on.
And it's just so great to be able to make that connection too with a keeper. I think that is like undervalued by a lot of people, but even me, who's been in the zoo world for years myself, I'll still go to other zoos and attend keeper chats and ask questions, because it's just awesome to talk with the individual keepers, because everyone has different experiences. Yeah. So if you have questions, most zoos do have keeper chats, so you can always try and find out more.
Yes.
And I highly recommend it. All right, well, that's it for us, I think, Catherine. So we are celebrating Orangutan Awareness Day. I hope all of our listeners have a better appreciation for how amazing orangutans are and how incredible our orangutan and great ape zookeepers are, like Catherine. Thanks so much for joining us. We really appreciate an expert in the field joining us and talking about what makes them so awesome. Katy and I love orangutans, and I'm sure we could make them sound really cool. But someone who works with them every single day, I think, brings a little bit more to the table.
Well, thank you for having me on here and for listening as much as I can jabber about orangutans, and probably could have gone on for way longer.
Well, that's just all of us, I'm sure. But
Right. All right, guys. Well, make sure you check us out on social media and on Patreon, For the Love of Nature. If you're able to support us, and it helps us to bring more content like this to you, so make sure you go check that out. And I think, Laura, this is the last episode releasing for the season 2.
Yes, this is the end of season 2, guys. So thank you so much for listening to season 2. And also, Orangutan Awareness Day, like we said, this is kind of the celebration, and there is plenty you can do on social media to help celebrate Orangutan Awareness Day. So tag us if you're doing anything. There are plenty of orangutan hashtags that'll be going around that day. Okay, so it'll be coming out 2 days after this podcast, so you guys have plenty of time. Download the app. Get ready to post some social media stuff. We will be, so keep an eye on our stuff.
And go visit your local zoo. I mean, go visit your local zoo and say thanks to the Great Ape Keepers for everything that they're doing. Because they do, it's like Catherine said, it's a very rewarding job. It's a very tough job. But man, it's something that we need for sure. So thank you again, Catherine.
Thank you.
All right, bye, listeners, and stay tuned. Season 3 is coming out real soon, and we're going to have some little teeny mini episodes coming out in between. Don't worry, we won't forget about you. Don't forget about us.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.